So I would like to first kick off the event and introduce Lisa, Lisa Kiew, who is a Chinese Malaysian living in London. LQ has a master's in creative writing and literary studies from Edinburgh University, and her debut collection, More Than Weeds, it's a stunning collection just published in 2023 with Nine Arches Press, like a very exciting publisher, a very innovative and exciting publisher in the UK. So without further ado, I would really love to have LQ read her work and share with us.
Thank you, Jenny, for bringing us all together tonight, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. I'm really thrilled to be reading with you and Shirley and Tim. All of you are poets that really inspire me. I wanted to start my reading firstly by acknowledging the events that are happening in the world, the genocides and the ecocides that we've been having. None of these things are new, and in some places they've been going on for far too long. So I wanted to start by reading a poem by Mahmoud Darwish. It's a 1980s translation by Denise Johnson Davis. Psalm 3. The day my words were of earth, I was a friend to ears of wheat. The day my words were of anger, I was a friend to chains. The day my words were of stone, I was a friend to streams. The day my words were of revolt, I was a friend to earthquakes. The day my words were of colocynth, I was the friend of the optimist. When my words became honey, flies covered my lips. As Jenny said, I'm going to read some poems from my collection, More Than Weeds. The collection explores themes of belonging, place, people, and mainly through the lens of horticulture. But what I wanted to read tonight was two poems to start off with that touch on my relationship to literacy and my own family heritage in relation to that. So my first poem is from my grandfather. He was a man with education, and he wanted to have a different life than he could do because of the economics of the time. Akong held our family together. Waking in the black hours, he sliced grooves into tree every 20 seconds, then cycled miles from estate to morning shift school. While the trees yielded milky latex, he tended these other saplings. Tapping, he guided students, calligraphy forming like tree lace. Then sun warmed everything. Sap congealed in small holders' cups. White lumps for scents, salt, rice. Days were long and still. His children couldn't eat until full. An elastic band draws descendants together. Monsoon comes. Mosquitoes swarming. The rubber tapper's oil-lit lamp. So I'm really blessed to have had an education, a degree, a master's degree even, but I guess not of all my elders did. And my next poem kind of reflects on that, and I guess it just reflects on that. She's against thieving. Through bamboo slats, the sun bakes stripes on grey concrete. Next door, fruit bats sleep uneasily in the eaves. Francesca squats behind the open kitchen, cuts the star, the Straits Times, into paper squares. She makes ready, waits for the day to back away to a steaming horizon. Its rice porridge heat cools, condensation on dark grass. At 7 o'clock, Francesca rises, straightens her sanfu to climb the long-armed tree that crouches, breeding shade in the corner of our yard. One by one, she wards each not yet ripe green head with words she cannot read. So I've been thinking of home quite a lot, and I'm going to read a poem, the title of which is The District in the State I Grew Up in. It's the name of a river, and it's also where my father ran a field study station when I was a child. Gomba. Wet greeted us everywhere, its green mossiness, earthy and insinuating between flip-flop and feet, woody drips from the dark canopy, squelching leaf litter. It licked us along the dark corridor, skidding from concrete kitchen onto long veranda and down the steep slope to that sudden sunlit Padang and beyond, flowing glints, clean water, swift, and there she was. Sungai, Kakak, capricious sister, she sprayed us with soft stream scent, skirted, soft sandstone, rocks slippery, shoulders undercutting earth banks. Her spirits altered after the rains. Waking us, she grumbled gravel, grumpy at being rushed, bearing the load of overlogging, heavy sediment from up valley deforestation. Our old white Ford was a rhino, turning reluctantly out of the gate. Its lurch lumber expelled me from forest home to other study stations. Tear blind, feeling sick, evicted, I looked back to the red-roofed refuge of road-scarred lorrymen, its altar offering oranges and incense, the giant banyan with roots upwards, branches hunched over, weeping. So as I said, a lot of the poems in More Than Weeds explore place and belonging through the lens of horticulture. And this next poem, I guess, is an urban poem. I'm very interested in nature in the city. Scythurism. A woman walks into a city of tall lights, concrete, cast shadows. A woman walks into a city of tarmac, cars careen. Street and lamp are intimate. We could talk of crowds, of congestion. A woman walks into a city of people uprooted, roadside tatters. A woman walks into a city, shattered, she falls to her knees. How they bear the weight, a bone grip on the earth, the distances. There's a forest, high-rise, flecks the horizon. There's a field, wind-blown lights, not of lawn or of overgrown grass. There's an allotment, torn weeds, split seeds, far from windows. There's one tree, blossom, nubs of new. Witness, every branch is a script. Leaves spell slivers of hearts. And I wanted to finish with a poem that really is very, very much about trying to find a place to belong. To live here. The door slammed. I tended a fire, a crackling of acer leaves, a bonfire of flaming heberis, camellias, azaleas, living flames. I gave what the garden gave, shrubs, sycamore, long grass, white-faced houses, wooden benches, laughter from the shade. Into the conflagration I flung myself, petals, language, drifting from the page, not belonging, longing to live here. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce Jennifer next, who's going to be reading. Jennifer is a very dear friend of mine, and her amazing collection that came out in 2020 is called Author's Home. It's called Letters Home. It's published by Nine Arches. And she's got a pamphlet coming out this year called Time Difference. That's coming out from Verve Poetry Press. Jennifer's got a PhD in creative writing from Oxford Brookes, and she's also working on her next collection. Jennifer's incredibly prolific and has also edited lots of amazing books between her collection in 2020 and her new one coming out. So I'm handing over to Jennifer now. I'm really thrilled to hear your new poems.
With that, maybe what I will do is I will read a few poems from Letters Home, and then I will move on to a few more poems from the newer pamphlet. So some of you might have listened to some of these, but I thought like it's still, to me, like some of these poems still mean quite a lot as I work on new poems. So one of these is called Small School. It's a poem that actually is one of my favorite in my own collection, Letters Home, because for a while before I moved to England, I had the chance to or the job offer to say that, oh, do you want to come to China to do some teaching in village schools, teaching them some English? And I was very tempted by the idea. And then I did a lot of research on what is Project Hub or village schools in China and how that worked. And I think I won't bore you with too much details, but basically I also saw on in some photographs on National Geographic about like the ridiculous amount of challenges going for these students to go to their schools. So this is a result from that. Small school. They get dressed in pre-dawn darkness. For hours they'll follow a path only they know. Around them no signposts, only mountains, quarries, sand in the wind, and wild slopes. Every step is a step away from home, leads them to a place they imagine, and the sky slowly fills with light. The building is so plain you won't notice. No name, no heating, just a room with haphazard stools and desks. Dust falling eternally on curtainless windows. At noon, they queue on the playground for hard-boiled eggs and steamed rice, or turn to play the battered piano. The water they drink comes from a well 1 kilometer away. Each day, the chef goes there to fetch water on his motorbike. 6,000 miles from where I am, on Guizhou's darkening mountains. These silhouettes in twos and threes who keep walking, fearless soldiers of the weather, carrying their satchels and tiny torches of hope. So this other poem is a reflection, of my own kind of intersection of my own journey with my daughter's journey. And I wrote it quite a while ago now, but still, I was quite glad that, thinking about how different we are and just accepting the fact that, my daughter's life is so different from me. There's a way of, letting go, I suppose. Daughter, you arrive in the year of the ram, a month after the royal birth, the kindest thing that has happened in my side of England. Remember the Chinese proverb, we are of the same bone and flesh, indebted to each other since the beginning. My little bird, do you know love is where you come from? If one day you look for my childhood, you will find it lies elsewhere, in a country with no alphabet. But here and now, what I feel is the clasp of your tiny fist, the heave of your small chest. 嘉慧，我係你嘅媽媽，公公婆婆都掛住你。And I know this undulated speech makes no sense to you and jars the ears. But baby, this is what I can give. The rest is your journey now. I also read this slightly more stranger poem about my own mother, I'll read this one actually, which has to do with my other past life, which is to do with some life of AST7. So when I was working in the government, everyone is known by a sort of acronym, and I was AST7, Assistant Secretary for Transport. So, letter to AST7. Those 3 years I thought I learned nothing, did nothing except perfect my skill for stapling important-looking papers and building an immaculate policy folder that someone could bring along to read in a chauffeured car, dreaming of questions and finding the answers to riddles I could not solve. How and when do you add more land to build new homes? Why don't you close the gap between the rich and the poor? When will Fei Yong be paid enough for looking after all our children? How long do we have to wait for our dream government? I once talked to the firemen and policemen well past midnight outside blocks of flats after a gas explosion, grieving with the families against broken windows and blackened kitchen walls. The year of the bird flu, we went about our business with masks and gloves. To put on a helmet and a safety jacket, enter a tunnel unbuilt, to imagine a new station, to have read all those folders and to stay calm at all times. In the evenings, coming home late, to look out of a taxi window at a diamond skyline for a continuous 30 minutes as if in cinema, building after building, one family living in each tiny cube of light, the tiny walls between them, and to question that historical self many years later. One more poem from this book before I move on. And so this one is also sort of slightly to do with my daughter and my mother, but hopefully more humorous. Real life thesis. Woke up 5 minutes before she did, time enough for a latte, butter on my toast, put on perfume, scribble a line of poetry with eyebrow pencil, unsurprised to spot a silk road of paints trailing the fridge, my handbag in the drum of the washing machine. Like a slacker caught red-handed, I hurriedly dished out Cocoa Pops, peeled a pear, turned on CBeebies, warmed up her milk. I sat next to her, typed up 2 paragraphs of my thesis, ordered groceries, read tweets from somewhere on the other side of the earth where Ocean Wong was winning prizes and weeping at the ceremony. Mummy Scooter. She held my hand and we hopped out into the garden, a shared grassy plot where she spent her first summer. More than anything or any poem, we wanted to buy a house. The other day, someone made a flattering remark about Charlotte's hand-knitted cardigan, except I couldn't say it came from a charity shop. In my dreams, there's hardly any knitting, only a stitching back of the woman I was, who saw life filled with promise, had the luxury of wandering and musing all day in that city of gargoyles, where students cycle past, their black gowns flapping in the wind. What does she mean by life is a semi-transparent envelope? what to do with the fragments and never understood. A woman who stood all day in high heels, selling antique elephants and rare gems, walked up 7 flights of stairs in a tonglao 6 months into her pregnancy, who lost her temper so easily, screamed, and sank the teeth of a comb into her child's skin. Some days or nights I thought of it, the love I was left with. In another life, I want to be a free woman, much loved for her writing, her fortitude. And here and now, your warm hand is the only thing I'll miss. And I'll kind of follow up with a couple of just new poems. I hope I can turn it on because just now it was a bit tricky turning on the other tab, so I will try my best. Oh. Okay, so this poem is from quite a recent trip to Hong Kong, and it's in Where Else Anthology, which I hope that some of you have read or will read it. Sitting in the car with my brother as he drove me through the slate-grey streets from Tsim Sha Tsui to Prince Edward on a Monday morning, somewhat cloudy, before leaving home once again. As we watch the worker in front of your car loading and unloading boxes, you've stopped by a Pret so I could get my coffee, the Westerner in me craving what you do not. You said you've decided that you wouldn't leave. Not yet, you said. We've got to love what's there. Next year, your son would go to your old mohao. I asked if you feel that things are much changed by now. Which newspaper should I read? I'll have to think. And then you shifted gear, drove on, and it started to rain. This one is dedicated to my Popo. Popo, in my mind, I would carry you because you have tiny feet. I'll carry you to eat the best fish and chips in town, make you dumplings in my new home. You'd cluck your tongue because the dumpling skin would be far too thick. We would laugh at the way the guailos hold their chopsticks. You'd be shocked to see a girl with tattooed arms wearing a flimsy dress on the coldest night. You won't believe how the Westerners risk their lives drinking water straight from the tap, how they don't get sore throats munching whole bags of kettle's crisps. I would carry you to see Big Ben, turn the clock backwards like Mary Poppins. We would travel to Diagon Alley where Harry and Hermione would greet you with their owls. I'll carry you to Hyde Park where you will feed your first swan, see your body regain strength as we ride on in an umber pink sheepskin soft rickshaw to cross the Thames, feeling triply young, singing Jasmine Flower in the river breeze. I don't know if I have one, can read one more poem. It's, this is actually a poem that it came from my experience from the pandemic, but actually when I came to think of it, I still kind of find it very endearing. The last of everything. If I knew that would be like my last afternoon to order a soya latte, the last time I went into M&S to buy a skirt, feeling as rich velvet before deciding. Jane and we kept talking about meeting up for breakfast, and afterwards would go and check out Titan, Love, Life and Death. I never realized how much my students mean to me until I step into an empty classroom. At the moment, my inbox is filled with sincere apologies. We're sorry the world is no longer as you recognize it. Memories of Tuesday afternoons, school foyer packed with all the daughters fitting themselves into tutus, slipping into their ballerina flats. That starless evening walking to the train station, talking like we always do, and a simple goodbye hug, my last chance. Followed by years of disproportionate dying and longing. I don't want to think about the gorgeous, useless bouquets at Waitrose on Mother's Day, all the grandmothers who stayed at home in their best clothes, ready to Skype. The day before the lockdown, our children at the local park, all they could play was the seesaw, one on each side, 2 meters apart. The daffodils on the other side of the playground nodded. And I'll just finish with this very tiny poem. As mother, day after day you put on weight and it's harder to type with one hand, nurse with the other. How do we dream back the body we used to have, the waist, the supple breast, a sensuous ratio of parts? I have forgotten the joy of gaze, how beautiful the sea is in the hinterland of giving. My baby's drowsy eyes close, the minutes on the clock glide, and I can return to my desk, my longtime friend, or I can acknowledge that I have been tired for a long time. Thank you. So, sorry, I shouldn't. Thank you so much for listening. And am I right? I think I can introduce my next, the next reader, who will be our lovely Shirley. Professor Shirley Lim, as many of you know, has served as Professor Emerita at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and has many, many distinguished titles, including Chair Professor, University of Hong Kong as well, and the UCSB Women's Studies Chair. She's the author of 12 poetry collections, a memoir, novels, short story collections, critical studies, and editor of over 15 anthologies and journal special issues. Her poetry has been widely anthologized and published, including in the Hudson Review, Feminist Studies, Virgin Quarterly's Review, etc., and featured by Bill Moyers and Tracy Smith's Slowdown as well. So this is quite an abridged version, but I will let maybe Shirley also, add to, tell us more about her latest projects and your latest collection. Thank you so much, Shirley.
Thank you, Jenny. Can you all hear me? Yes, okay. All right. I have to say that listening so far to the two poets, I am deeply, deeply moved and actually very, very much honored to be included at the age of 79 with this wonderful young generation of women poets. To be included as a senior is already like unbelievable. And then to hear these fresh voices dealing with themes that still resonate with me. So for example, Lisa's line, I love this phrase, camellias of failure, that rhythm and rhyme, and then not belonging, longing to live here, right? That resonance of the here, which is thematically, what so many of us feel. And then of course, Jenny's wonderful poetry and what really I can remember so well, a country with no alphabet. I've never heard that said about China before, and it's so true, right? And so how fresh and original are you both women? Fortunately or unfortunately, my most recent book of poetry, Dawn's Tomorrow, has hardly anything to do with Hong Kong, a place that I really deeply, deeply love, as you all know. Because it is at my age, it came out this year and I'm going to be 80 soon. At my age, this is my first American collection. And fortunately for today, Biden has dropped out. Kamala Harris is raking in tons and tons of money. I've just sent two lots, to support her campaign. And so reading a collection that comes out of an American identity no longer shames me or embarrasses me. Because America, there have been very many Americas, and this America that I'm trying to write about is the America that I believe in. And so with the change in temper in the country now happening just yesterday on Sunday, right? And today's Monday. It's like maybe it is dawn's tomorrow after all. And I'm going to begin by reading the first poem here, which is somewhere in the book, and it's called Why I Walk Alone, which tells you something about my life, earlier life in the United States. So Jenny gave a list of all the things I've quote unquote achieved, but you can hear from that list that I was, and am perhaps still, a workaholic. You cannot have that long list of publications without being a workaholic. Take it from me. So Jenny's saying that as a mother, she has to learn to type with one finger. She has to finally admit how tired she's been. That's been my life in the United States, all right, because I'm also a mother. So why I walk alone? Because I am a social melancholic, because I'm a workaholic, because walking is a way of working, and because I work best alone. Because I love to talk, and because sometimes I must talk to myself. Because I dress down when I walk, dressing down to my naked core. Because walking is a happiness for a solitary. Because pacing with 2 or 3 or more is aggravating to souls. Because the breeze is lighter without heavy human huffing. Because steps are lighter without heavy human suffering. Because I make bad decisions when I walk, like running when lights turn orange. Because it is okay to kill myself, but not you. Because I am patient. I am more patient when I walk. And because I am impatient when I have to stop walking. Because walking is a dreamer's route, and it is impossible for a companion to dream the same dream at the same moment on the same route, wandering away from madness, separation, despair, home. So that's Why I Walk Alone is a poem about my life in the United States. Fortunately, however, I grew older and hopefully wiser. And this poem marks that turn in my life in the United States. Instead of walking alone, being a solitary, I found out that actually I have arrived home. I am an American citizen, and all of American citizens and those who live in America are my community. Whether they will vote for Trump or they will vote for Kamala Harris, which of course I'm hoping for, does not matter. They are all American citizens, and I am part of that citizenry. And this is the moment when I realized it, when I was at the Met looking at a painting. The Hudson River School of Painters is American identity, I was told. Never saw why until that morning at the Metropolitan. Catskills, the green-bodied and lively river twining on canvas, vaster than actual dimensions, oil depth, receding shadows. West Point, Peekskill, I'd driven past, tight-assed, anxious, by 8-wheelers. I'd been killed 9 times over in near crashes. There, 4-framed, order secured, America glows. A waterfall rushes, held up by color for all time. The man in the blue coat stands quiet as I do, gazing at rimmed mountains, clouds, roving light, like subdued sheep. Nature sublime, domestication sublime. In these rooms, Hudson River billow moves, settles down to nations dark, white, brown, yellow, water, air above, earth underfoot, restless as genius, fixed and flow. And this is the United States of America as an ideal to the rest of the world, restless as genius, fixed yet flow. And this is why hundreds of thousands of people are moving illegally across South America, from Asia, including from China, to try to get into the United States every day, including this morning. The Hudson River School of Painters. So at that point, I changed. I became a new person, and this is what my new collection is about, Dawn's Tomorrow. I may be 80, but I am determined to live till I'm 96. So I have 16 more years of writing and living to do. That is my agenda. I'm going to live till I'm 96. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Car Therapist, and it tells you how I have changed from walking alone. Here I'm in a car. I'm driving to my oncologist because of my breast cancer, and I'm going to do a CT scan. And this really happened. So this is a poem that really did happen. Car Therapist. Driving to the oncologist, I'm talking to myself. A volunteer car therapist. A speedster cuts to my right in near collision, forcing a fast brake, which I do, cursing, middle finger waving, damning him and everything his. I say loudly, calm down, Shirley. Why? His wife may be dying, cesarean gone badly. The obstetrician calls, hurry, hurry, hurry. Or he's a high school graduate, out just June, lucky to land a job downtown, and he's late. The boss even now checking the clock. Everyone needs a break, my car therapist says, and you are going to give him one this morning. Calming nod, agreeing, fingers crossing, the ultrasound gives me a break. My trusted oncologist can only do so much when the body goes crazy and grows new cells, even as it's aging. Growth at any age has its pros and cons. Some cons are fatal. My car therapist talks me kindly through merging lanes and caffeinated big rig trucks, navigating me to my destination. So I only have 2 more poems. The last one is very short. This one is my poem of wisdom. As you know, to have arrived where I have, I was very good at taking exams. Always, never afraid of them, right? I had a panic attack yesterday. I won't tell you why, but that was my first panic attack ever. It was yesterday. But with exams, I was completely fearless because it was my way out of poverty. So I was just a great exam taker, nothing fazed me. And my wisdom today is life is not an exam. This is what I have learned. It took me a long time to learn, but I did learn it. And I want to share it with all of you who are still taking exams and giving exams. Life is not an exam. It's multiple choices. Don't fail you if you mark an X in an incorrect box. Your X's do not box you in. Erase them, blot them out with black, red, or green or purple magic marker. One choice does not prohibit you other choices. Love all 3 and they will love you back the way a friend loves you and introduces you to another you will also love. For no circle should be complete. The way examination doors bang shut when you sit down to write, the finality of your learning. Life is not answers to strangers' questions. You do not have to recall precisely. Rosy glasses are acceptable. Some traumas that fog vision may be wiped away. There will be no penalty for misremembering. Some exes are best forgotten, not skulking in cells. Life is replete with mistakes and also with lucky guesses. The way I am wife, despite failing my driving test in someone's lucky life. And with that wisdom, I'm going to end with a very short poem, which really summarizes my feeling today with Kamala Harris. I am sure she is going to win and become president of the United States. The first woman, not the first Black, but the first South Asian, and her husband is Jewish. All right? Okay. This is called Moment, and this is the moment that I feel the United States is in. We all deserve a happy ending. Poor and rich, highborn and runty, paradise gleams with early morning birds pecking at grass seeds in a dry patch. Happy seed in the happy beak, a moment of morning happiness, seizing endings as ending. And I am blessing all of you with this ending. And it is my privilege at this point to introduce Tim Tim. Okay, guys, Tim Tim Cheng. I have her introduction here. And I'm so honored to introduce the last featured poet, Tim Tim Cheng from Hong Kong, who is currently based between, get it, Glasgow and London, Glasgow and London, which reminds me of what Maxine Hong Kingston said in The Woman Warrior when her mother kept saying they should return to China to claim their lost farm, their lost property. She said, Mama, she said, the planet is our country. The whole world is our country. And where we are is our home, right? And so between Glasgow and London is where Tim Tim Cheng's home is right now, right, Tim Tim? Her pamphlet, Tapping at Glass, was one of Poetry Society Books of the Year in 2023. And this year in October, her full collection, The Tattoo Collection, will appear from 9 Arches Press. And I want to hear poems from that because I'm thinking of having a tattoo done on my arm on my 80th birthday. Okay, Tim Tim, go for it.
Thank you, Shirley. It's so great to meet you virtually. I've read your work before and you exude such energy and warmth. And I think about the same thing too. I always tell my friends that I am going to live until 500 years old, although I am very unhealthy. So let's work towards that together. I'm going to change my set for you because you said you want a tattoo. And this poem is a real story. I'm just going to read it. It's called The Tattooist. I let my friends, sorry, let me drink some water first. It's been a long day. I'm actually in the Scottish Highlands now. Everything is a bit confusing at the moment. All right, so this poem is called The Tattooist. I let my friends' children ink my back, a noisy, wild mess, somewhere between a playground and a bar's toilet. A boy slashed a drooping penis here, you see, slightly below my shoulder blade. He used to doodle erections everywhere, his family's house, his school wall, his own assignments, my sketchbook, although we'd just met. So I told him, vandalize me with an actual tattoo gun. His eyes were wide hand shaky, as he stabbed the machine into my back, forging confidence. It was his first flaccid penis and the last he drew in public. I like to write about penises and the police quite a lot. And the next poem is about like the collective grief that a lot of people experience when we witness police brutality all over the world. And the most recently, Bangladesh students' protests have been suppressed violently. So yeah, this poem, I guess, is a space where I try to navigate between being a witness from afar. And this poem is titled after a statue by a Taiwanese artist, Dong Minjin, and the poem is called The Birth of a New Hero. When they cut you down, I bend my knees, curl up into a camphor tree stump. A second skin envelopes me, softening edges. I cover my face with both hands, their honesty breathes. I crack, ripple, where my joints jut. Forget costless nicety, forget proud annihilation, forget how life goes on. Here's to searchlights storming through households, replacing dawns. Here's to shadows, now statues, to unblinking mornings, the acute quiet in our bread, our bite-sized offering. The next poem is also about thinking of home from afar. So I moved to the UK 2 years ago, thinking that I can make a living by writing poetry, and now I'm suffering from that illusion. And I remember being in London. Oh, not London, actually. I was in Edinburgh at that point. And I happened to meet so many people who came from places of oppression. While we were talking about painful things, we're actually having good food together. So that kind of dissonance is quite striking to me. So I write about that a lot. And my last poem is slightly a bit more hopeful. I guess despite everything, I guess the pain and the grief that I've been feeling for my home, Hong Kong, and the rest of the world actually comes from a sense of love, and it's also a call for duty. And when it was the pandemic and Hong Kong protests were dying down, I went to so many beautiful geoparks in Hong Kong, and I did many amazing things with my coworkers. And this poem is about catching frogs with them. It's from a place called Shui Hao in Hong Kong. And the poem is called Frog Goes, Frog Gone. Frog goes as in doggos, cute dogs that we love. Frog gone as in go and gone. And this one hopefully is this is my last poem, and I like to read this one recently as a wish for all the displaced animals and people. Frog goes, frog gone. Tonight, you're not dried and flat, blending into the road. You croak like no one's watching, loud, multiple. Among you, there is this ridiculous laughter, surround sound of a cabra-debra, distinct, almost like a mockery to the itchy fact that our blood is your food's food, but the thick green soup of your lotus leaves and children, some of which will never grow. We thought you were extinct, And how the hell did you return? Our flashlight gives no answer, but to reveal you, stoic, resting on bark or under a big grass blade. You, so many of you, looking out from drain pipes or swept into a gutter higher than you could leap. So we cup our hands to take you back to the wet bush by which you freeze unblinking, as if making sense of the tunneling of God's hands before you turn left, then right, then spring out of sight. Thank you so much for listening and being very attentive. Please buy my book. I'm broke and that makes me shameless in good ways. So do support everyone here. I think I am here to open up the open mic section. I think it's a really beautiful night to celebrate continuance and friendship. And according to the list that I have, there are 4 open micers, Maureen, Pauline, Wendy, and Dino. If I've missed your name, please just send me a private, direct message with your biography. Then I will just briefly introduce you. So sorry if we missed your name before. Without further ado, I'm gonna introduce Maureen. Maureen Tai is a Hong Kong-based Malaysian writer who has published creative works in literary magazines such as Cha, Mekong Review, the Asian American Writers Workshop, Kyoto Journal, and Voice and Verse magazines. Maureen Tai mainly writes for children and teenagers. She has published short stories for children and won awards for picture book manuscripts. Maureen counts her time as a program director of the Hong Kong International Literary Festival in 2023 as a highlight of her literary career to date. Yes, Maureen, I don't know how you did that. Thank you so much for doing that for everyone. I can't wait to hear your poem.
And it's 3 a.m. in Hong Kong.
Correct. Thank you so much. Wow, this it was wonderful to hear everybody's poems. If I could write one about how I feel right now, it would be titled Imposter at 3 a.m. But instead, I'll read you a short poem that was inspired by recent events and includes a hope for the world. It's called Peace Offerings for a Ceasefire. Cup a moon moth in your hand, sidestep an ant, dust around a spider's web, bear small lives, restore the scales to balance, fill the void left by the children, erase their names unwritten. Your voice is a whimper, your will is ash. Yet you make your offerings of peace. Water the lime plants in their pots. Let the caterpillar eat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was powerful. Let the caterpillar eat. Love that. It's so much energy in just 3 words. Thank you so much. Our next open micer is Dino. Correct me if I'm reading your name wrong. Dino teaches creative writing at the University of Hong Kong. He won publication of his collection, The Great Comet of 1996, Four Tales, in the 2021 Live Canon Collection competition. His first collection, Tutti Frutti, was the winner of the Sentinel Poetry Book Competition 2017. Dino, please take the mic.
Thanks very much, Tintin. Really great to be here. Great to hear you read. Lovely to hear Jenny. Gorgeous to see Shirley. Okay, one very short one and one kind of short one. First one is Justice. She holds his limp young body in a stiff bracket of outstretched arms, strides along the highway against oncoming traffic, taking him to where earth meets sky, the supreme court of strangled things. And the second one is a homage to a place I used to live in Hong Kong, in Tsim Sha Tsui. It was a building called the Hong Kong Mansion, and that's the title of the poem, and it's also included in the anthology Where Else. Down a fume-filled skyscraper canyon, we turn off into my building, a wall of tin mailboxes, flight of stairs up to the porter's counter. That's him being spoon-fed homemade soup by his mistress. And that cute guy marking a betting card against the wall is a waiter from the perfect seafood restaurant. In the lift, a bald monk holds a water bowl, a flower floating in it, on his way up to the Great Perfection Buddhist Center, and a tattooed hottie in tight mesh singlet off to Bobson's sauna for some fun. We step into a corridor of metal-gated doors, past the whoosh of mahjong towels being washed, scales on a piano, radio blaring, canso plop, and here we are. Come in, relax, kick off your shoes, give me a cuddle.
Thank you for this. This brought me right back to Hong Kong. I could hear and smell everyone. Thank you so, so much. Thank you. Our next open micer is Pauline. So Pauline lived in Hong Kong off and on for over 25 years between 1985 and 2015. She taught English language, literature, intercultural communication, mainly at City U Community College, created and presented poetry programs for secondary schools on RTHK Radio 4 in collaboration with Dino. Whoa, all the friends here. And Pauline was a poet/tutor on Professor Shirley Lim's moving poetry workshops for schools at HKU, and a regular reader at Out Loud. Now semi-retired in the UK, she's still active as a writer, editor, and tutor, still visits Hong Kong whenever she can. Well, a bunch of workaholics in this room here. I love that. So Pauline, take it away.
Actually, I would disclaim the workaholic label. I'm almost a professional lazy person. I can rival Oblomov with no trouble at all. But thank you for introducing me, Tim. And in a way, my bio, it almost reads like an apology, because I always say that I'm a teacher who sometimes becomes a poet rather than a poet who is also a teacher. But at this, and one thing that I have in common with Shirley Lim is that we are age mates. So, and it's a privilege to be here among all you wonderful, wonderful poets. So it's just great to be here. I said I was only going to read one. Sorry, I lied. I will read two, but they're not very long. The first poem, I wrote the first draft of this, early 2000s, 2004, shortly before I left Hong Kong. And already I was feeling the pain and grief of impending exile. And this one is called Amber Warning. Just before dawn, darkness unclenched a storm over the silent park. Rain hissed in the trees. Mercury fell, sleep ended. Out on the balcony, I breathed the fresh night in. Blown raindrops prickle my arms, leaves stroke the bruised sky. Explosions of lightning fade against sour orange lights. An hour to go before daybreak. Escape to a paperback world, where icons weep blood, brothers tempt heaven, the size of estates is counted in human souls, where the priest lifts his frail hand to bless peasant women and in God's name unpacks their burdens. When there's so much forgiveness, can't you accept some could be given to you? Next morning's sky is higher than yesterday's, upturned a pale china bowl feeding 100 streams. They too reflect light. 3 uniformed cleaners move brooms in unison, setting a slow ballet to the drumming of tires on the road. I pass the big shopping mall, riding at anchor with its ridiculous cargo of dreams, some of them mine. The sign at the tall glass entrance proclaims, "Amber warning." A horn blares at my back, a truck, the driver with his small son up in the cab waving. Goodbye? They point and shout as the last wisp of cloud vanishes. Look out, your bag is open. So that was my amber warning, which has gone through hundreds of rewrites. I don't know if anyone else is a compulsive reworker of former poems, but that's definitely something I do. Okay, just looking for the next one. It'll be there somewhere. Hang on a minute. Yep. Come on. Should say done. Yes. Next one, more hopeful, about one of my favorite places in the world that I was lucky enough to revisit early this year, and that is Taipo. I'm sure some of you will know it. It's called Taipo Morning. Taipo morning opens, breathless and green. Santong's topmost shoulder shrugs off veils of cloud. Roadside trees fluff out leaves threaded with blossoms yellow and white. Pylons climb wooded slopes on slender legs. Wild countryside beckons. The road snakes down to the market under the thundering freeway. Traffic flows down to the city. Buildings decant into buses. Paramount, Paragon, JC Castle, Grand Palisades. Dreams half forgotten, smartphones in hand. We workers are shuttled in batches. No one looks up.
Oh, Pauline, the space you took us to, we work as the batteries that got shuttled. Wow. Power. This is the thing that I hate about hosting events. Sometimes I just want to savor in the line, but I have to keep the event going. But I think after the open mic, we can have some time for chats and Q&A if anyone is into that. Our last open micer. Oh, Shirley, do you want to say something? Did you see it? All right.
Just saying that there are a couple of other people to read. So there's Wendy. And I was wondering if Maureen might read another poem because she read only a very short one. And I would love to hear a second poem from Maureen. So if we can give her time while Wendy is reading to find a second poem, would you do us a favor, Maureen? Yeah.
Yeah, and if any audience want to jump in after being inspired by all the other open micers too, please drop me a DM. I could just introduce you. Wendy, wow, I love Wendy. I'm just going to read the formal bio first. Wendy Law is a poet born and raised in Hong Kong. She received the Professor Shirley Lim Poetry Writing Scholarship First Prize in 2018. She's the winner of the Firth Poetry Festival Competition 2023 and is recently shortlisted for the biggest poetry prize in Scotland and one of the biggest among the UK, the Edwin Morgan Poetry Award. Wow, Wendy, you please bestow on us your poetry.
Congratulations, Tim, on the, I think it's been long listed to tapping at glass. And I don't know what to say because every poet here tonight means a lot to me. Like this community of female poets keeps giving me the drive and the feel to continue writing, and of course, especially Shirley. 5 years ago, when you given me this signed copy of More Ballade, it's how everything just kick-started. It's just really good to see you again tonight, and you look well. Just hope, yeah, just really nice to see everyone here. And I just like to read very quickly from the anthology, which is edited by Jennifer Wong, Tim, and also Jason. And because this year is the 5th anniversary of the Hong Kong protests, so of course I have to read something about the protests. And I think if time allows, I'd like to also read Shirley's poem, which is just next to mine. And I feel so happy and honored about this. But do we still have like enough time to do that? Should I just do one poem? Okay, then I'll start with Shirley's Admiralty. 5 years have passed, 5 long years, and still planes land and lift off the tarmac hills, not yet dwarfed by thickening towers, filling up and emptying of people. Fixed, unstable on sea and land, however mixed. 5 years, and still the children's chants echo in the millions multi-level haunts, its canyons, windows open to grannies, watchful of children's children, the city's uncles, grandpas in wheelchairs, the aunts who had been only girls 5 years ago. 2 million on the march is slow, motion exercise of a people's will, avenues in black and white. What ills occupy the world's channels? Their monochrome of grief is grievance against tomorrow's losses. Their bosses' gambles are sorrow's soul in the wind not of their election. The young sing in English elocution, rally in Cantonese, daydream horror, sci-fi future worlds. 5 years have passed. Each year in Hong Kong, someone's last. And that's it for me. Just thank you so much for making this happen. It's such a lovely poetry night.
So Maureen?
Thank you, Shirley. And I thought I'd just hold up the book that helped me see myself so many years ago. It is such a, I'd never imagined when I was reading this that I would be in a little cube, a little rectangle next to you. So this is, it's miraculous. This is a poem I wrote when I attended Jenny Wong's poetry online class some months ago, which was my first foray into any sort of poetry learning. As Tintin mentioned, I'm actually a children's writer, but a segue, like you, Pauline.
I'm sorry, I'll finish now. I actually, when you were here earlier, I could have just turned the sound off. I didn't think about it, but anyway, but if you want to come up, it's no problem.
I don't understand it. Who is speaking? Is it Dino?
I think it was probably just an error.
Right.
So just this is a poem that I wrote during that course, and thank you, Jenny, for encouraging me to take that course, called Visiting My Younger Self. My love, dearest heart, The ache that double bends you will fade. It will not be the only hurt. Just as the boy you think you are in love with now will not be the only one. Many more will apparate to delight and torment you. Your favorite song, that forever friend, even our mother and our father, you will outgrow them all. You will learn that all choices come with regrets. Yet for all this, I would not alter the course. I would not seek to protect you as you search for your own singularity. But what I would do is whisper in your ear, brush against your shoulder, tug on the wind chime at your window. May my breath compel you to return the smile from Appa's careworn face. May my touch persuade you to linger in Amma's desperate embrace. May the chiming bell turn your gaze towards a brilliant sunset. May you pay attention to your one rapturous life. Thank you.
That was so gorgeous. I felt healed by your poem just now. Thank you, Maureen. Our last open micer is Jinhao Xie. Jinhao is a Barbican young poet and an alumni of the South Bank Center New Poets Collective. They're currently making their first pamphlet collection. Their work is in all the best poetry magazines you could find, and they're also anthologized by the Kiew. Instagram Poems for Every Day by National Poetry Library and the wonderful anthology Recreation. They're interested in nature, the mundane, and the interpersonal. Food is their love language. You can find them on Instagram at xie.jin.hao. I will send it in the chat. So Jinhao, take it away.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know, I feel a bit shy tonight, so I'm just going to read my poems. It's been so beautiful and was really inspired, so I sort of put my hand up to say, can I read the poem? Kind of along the theme of tonight, this is a poem, me trying to wrestle with some issues or things, called Mother, Mother, inspired by Audre Lorde. I love you fleshed into blossom. I made you and take you made into me. Audre Lorde, Recreation. It was raining outside. The wet, stomping at the entrance echoed. The church would have no place for us, tourists, who came only looking for a short stay. In front of the man naked on the cross, I saw you sobbing, so loud, even the priest came. Under his robe, a cross stiff, clenched in his hands, I held you close. Pressed your head in to my chest. Okay la, I patted your shoulder, it's just us now. Then a sudden strike. I unbuttoned my blouse and my breasts bared in the cold. Oh, how I wished mine would drape out like yours. The dawn dawns on the poppy petal. At that moment, for once, you were my daughter instead of mother. The sun, that day, horrendous. Thank you.
I always love the amount of care and love that runs in Jinhao's poetry. I think it's a really wonderful way to end our open mic section here. We've still got maybe 5 minutes to go. I think Jennifer can take over from here. If you want to ask any of us any questions, go ahead. If you want to tell Shirley how much you love her, please do. I've been seeing some really nice messages in the chat as well. Yeah.
Oh no, not at all. Thank you so much. It's just so impressive, like how everyone's poems can resonate and feel like interconnected. And are there any, and I feel like especially honored to have like so many of us like connecting with Shelley's work and responding to your latest work as well. So if we can see if there are any questions from I think like probably if you would like to either unmute and ask us some questions, or you can drop it on the chat as Jinhao suggests.
I'd like also to introduce, besides Noel, another scholar, Ching Meyer. She's there, and she's at Siena College, and she's a scholar working on diasporic Asian writers. And I want to introduce someone who I just saw on the chat. I didn't know he was attending it. Professor Stephen Zone, who is Korean American, but a fully Asian and a fully American scholar. Unfortunately, he does not yet write poetry, but he is an endowed chair at Fordham University in New York. And he's been lurking, I guess. I just saw his name pop up. And so Stephen is an amazing scholar. He is publishing his third or fourth book. Talk about being prolific, talk about being a workaholic. He's very young, believe it or not. He's very young, and he's just been publishing a mile and a leg. And I'm so worried he's going to drop dead from being a workaholic. So he doesn't appear, but, you know, look at his name, S-O-H-N, Stephen Zone. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead with your questions. Anyone has questions? Cheng Lok, can I call on you? Chua Cheng Lok is in California. He's a retired professor from Fresno, CSU. And he was, before he retired, an amazingly prolific scholar too, very involved with MELIS, Multi-Ethnic Literatures of the United States. So Cheng Lok, do you have a question to any of us or anyone in the...
No, just to thank you all for a wonderful session of poetry. Thank you.
I have a question. I noticed like all the readers tonight is kind of across like age spectrums. I think and I think you have a different approaches through your poetry. Do you, like Shirley, you sort of lived a life and then you're still looking forward for the future, brighter future, and then we have the younger poets like Maureen and Jenny and Tim and Lisa, like you're also in your stage. How do you look back and look forward in your poetry? Thank you.
Is your question for the senior me, or is your question to the younger one?
Everyone, just like in your at your stage of life, how do you look forward or look back in your life with your poetry?
Maybe I like to listen to the young ones. You listen to the young ones, how do you look forward? And especially since so many of you still identify with Hong Kong, which is still home for you. And despite my saying that, you know, for me, you know, with Maxine Hong Kingston, the planet is our world and everywhere we are is home. I knew it took me a long time to get there. Took me a long time to get there. So I want to hear from the young ones. Jennifer?
Well, I wouldn't say. How about Wendy first? Would Wendy or Tim have anything to talk about?
I suggested Jennifer because she's got a daughter.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, maybe I mean just offering my own perspective. I just think like it's like, especially being a mother and looking back, like finding part of myself in my daughter, like as in the sort of hopes. Like she is basically my, you know, my hopeful self in a way. Like I've always wanted to be able to start my life in England in some ways, and so, but I know at the same time it's a romanticized version of self or identity, and I think I can sort of realize also through being a mother the way that I, why I were, my part of being in Hong Kong is has a value to it, and has a, like I begin to find myself, like why was I there? Like, I find it quite exciting that way. And hopefully that is in the poetry as well. How about Tim or Wendy and Shirley?
And Lisa.
Oh, Lisa as well. Mm-hmm.
Lisa's from Malaysia, not Hong Kong.
I'm also not one of the young ones, so I'll let Wendy and Tim go first. Much younger than me.
Wendy's been in the UK for 2 years, so she left Hong Kong fairly recently. No, I mean Tim. And I don't know about Wendy. Wendy, when did you leave Hong Kong?
That was about 5 years ago already. Yeah.
Right. So you've been in the UK longer. How do you look forward?
I think that's a really difficult question. So instead of like a answer, I have more questions than answers. Actually, I'm thinking about, like, of course, everyone here today are very experienced poet, and I'd like to know if anyone has ever find the process of writing poetry a torture or a torment. If so, how do you go back to find a solution, or how do you just keep pushing yourself forward? Yeah.
So Tim, you've been there 2 years, and you talk about having the illusion that you could make money out of writing poetry, that you will immediately now have found that you've been deluded. How do you look forward to a life of poverty?
Love it. Don't know, like it feels good to be breadcrumbed, like but it does take, like, writing poetry does take me to great people and great places. I just have to do that in a very economical way. And speaking of age, I think age in poetry is really funny, because like we have seen, like Wendy, or he's not here tonight, but Eric Yip, like they're both like younger than me, but I think in terms of thoughts and thinking, they're just much more mature in so many ways. So in some way, maybe poetry is a great space to like meddle with age and stuff. I don't know. And I don't know how you all just take care of children and write at the same time. And yeah, like I can't even take care of my inner child.
Well said, yeah. Lisa, you need to speak up now. I want to hear from a fellow Malaysian.
Oh, I guess about going forward and poetry. I mean, poetry is my joy. So every opportunity to live and breathe it in community or on my own, in just off the page, is what feeds me to go forward. Yeah. So I would say books are always a friend, and hopefully when we cannot be together, we can always be together between pages of books.
Something that
Pauline, for someone who's so senior,
something that I've experienced is that being a poet is something actually that I've been intermittently in bursts through my life. I started writing when I was 7 or 8, wrote consistently through my teens, and then it sort of stopped and dried up, and career, family, kids, etc. took over. And then I started writing again in Hong Kong when I was in my 40s. So Hong Kong gave me back that gift. I'm not going to go on about the years in between, but now today, when I was actually rewriting one of the poems I read this evening, I had a moment of pure joy. So, you know, okay, I'm not saying I don't mean to say that it's easy. And it takes the time, it takes the effort, it takes the commitment, but there is no better feeling. And it's like moving into another dimension.
And Dino, who as he's going forward is winning prize after prize after prize.
Yeah.
So how do you go forward?
Well, I think keep changing. Just take risks. That's because we all kind of like looking for our voice, and we find our voice, but then we kind of change, you know. And so I think there's that whole thing about pushing yourself, taking risks, and then that's exciting, because sometimes, you know, you find your groove and you're happy in your groove. But then stuff is going on, and you can really explore it. And I think you can be helped a lot. I guess a lot of us are in groups. You know, I belong to a couple of really great poetry groups where fellow poets whose work I really like give me feedback, honest feedback, and that helps to sort of like shove you forward. Because sometimes if you just rely on yourself, you're kind of in a bit of an echo chamber. So so going forward,
Oh, we lost Dino. Dino, we lost you. But you know, I love what he said. I have to remember it. It has to be my mantra for the week anyway. Take risks. Because, you know, as I age and I'm physically less up, you know, although someone said that I seem so energetic, I can feel myself physically being less energetic. I take fewer risks. And that's the goddamn truth, right? And so this 2 words, take risk, it really resonates with me, because that's not what I've been doing. It's so you younger poets, and what he said about having groups. Are you all in groups? Any of you in groups? Writing groups? Show of hands? Because Lisa is in a group.
I think
Let's say, right, that we are not in groups.
Sorry, I can I just quickly jump in? I think like it's just so true, and the thing is like a lot of us have you know, been writing together, or you know, like sort of helping each other in some ways, talking about poetry and reading poetry together, whether it's online, hybrid, or in person. You know, I just thought like all these are very precious opportunities for us to sort of keep up that sort of spirit of writing, and it doesn't matter where exactly we are, or which year we have spent in Hong Kong or not, or outside Hong Kong, outside Asia. It feels very real to me, that writing.
Yeah, so. Any other questions or statements or queries or criticisms before we close?
I would just like to express so much love for you all. Thanks for the evening. It was wonderful, truly.
Yeah.
And
Yep. I heart all of you. I learned this phrase from Hong Kong students. I never knew what it meant, and they would say, "I heart you, Professor Lim." So I heart.
Also, I have to jump in and also thank especially Professor Lim for, you know, like writing that beautiful foreword for my book exploring some writing, what is writing elsewhere. She has like such a, you know, you must read, if anything, at least read the preface, that like she's got so many ideas of, or questions actually, challenging us to think of people and Asian writing in many new ways. And obviously like all these volumes that you have done, including both poetry and memoir and academic articles and books, I just thought like some of our poetry have been influenced by that as well. And just thank you for it.
Okay.
Anyone else has some comments to share before we close the evening, or questions? Right. I think maybe, yes, I guess like some of you might have to, go now because of the time difference and all that. Tim, do you have anything to add? Tim, and Lisa, and Shirley? Right. With that, so thank you very much for this joyful occasion, and please remember to buy the books of these poets and check out their websites and also our dear other poet friends who have read tonight, and we will put on this recording and share with everyone on social media as well. Thank you so much, everyone.